721. That's just the military real estate or business world. I ran a commercial real estate company last, and you could tell the quality of the management of the management by the maintenance company, by the manager when you would see how work was performed or how management operated. That would become now 721. You'll be able to put a deed not only on the building, but how that building is managed and by whom. And that will become more valuable over time, whether it's 3 years, 5 years, and depending on the quality of the maintenance and how quality the building is taken care of, it will be more valuable. Put that with an AI machine, and now you're going to be able to track that, automate. It's going to be automated. How much value is created? Put on an exchange now that you can take excess profit off of the performer and use that either how that particular management company wants to interpret opportunities to create more value for the customer, or it goes back up to the holding company. This is all very exciting. It's more than digital. This is huge.
Talk about like energy efficiency savings and maintenance savings.
Okay, Scott Deatherage just asked to talk about energy savings and sustainability. One of the things that I've spent the last 10 years of my life on as an entrepreneur is to try and create a digital representation of social value or environmental value. It's very hard in normie traditional terms to show that you're and get credit for the fact that you're putting less drag on the environment, whether you're working at greenhouse gases, climate control, whatever it is. With this type of 721, you can now measure how much water you're saving, electricity you're saving, gas, greenhouse gas, city urban heating. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can now capture with 721 that you could not before. And now, at the very top of the heap here, when a company has a board means fiduciary responsibility. It means you're legally responsible for how this particular object is taken care of. You can now create fiduciary compelling need to put things in 721 because, let's say Scott Deatherage now has a building that he's doing good things as a good steward to the planet and people, and I'm running things like normies do today, where all they really care about is money. And they hope the building doesn't break before they can flip it to somebody else and hide all that was done poorly. That's the game in real estate right now. So if Scott's running his well, 721 will give him credit that's provable to the real world and anyone that is now being done better than me, the bad guy, that's trying to hide everything off balance sheet. You put all of this 721 work on balance sheet now. So not only is Scott's performance as a manager and owner on the building on the 721 provable, where he'll eventually develop a 721 reputation for running and operating better buildings, that his balance sheet, his P&Ls, things won't be hidden. Real estate right now is a black magic and the best liar with a straight face. Right now you put it 721 and all accountable for it. Okay, you go off stage, thanks.
Hey man, thanks for the talk, guys. Appreciate hearing the responses, everything. I'm with Ranchain, so we're working on a decentralized exchange. We just had a partnership with Kyber, talking about the decentralized Ethereum ERC 721 asset exchange. Is that something that's easily implemented into existing sort of decentralized exchanges? Like how do you pronounce it? Wyvern. How is that? So 0x is integrating 721s. Like how is that process? Is it tough? Is it like do you have to rebuild everything? Is it sort of like an add-on? Like how does that whole process work?
Yeah, so I can connect you with the lead developer. He's the best point, but I think for both, I don't want to speak for 0x, and we actually don't know what their implementation of NFTs is going to be. Maybe someone in this room does, but I assume that if you don't develop on 0x and you've gotten used to like their system, then it would be easier. I think it's pretty simple to use something like Wyvern as well. I think if you're like a developer, you're doing you're doing Ethereum development, it's pretty simple. So that's at least it's early days on like adoption. So there's not a ton of feedback outside the lead developer. And obviously he's good at doing it, but it's sort of designed to be very easy. So
technically, it's very easy because I'm going to say this thing. I mean, we back had a building with your 620 in some ways. We're trying to make this easy. when you're selling a token, you know, a picture of some generic coin, like, have you ever seen pictures of Bitcoin? They have some circle with a B in it, and it's got the, whatever, electronics on top. That's not gonna work when you're selling crypto for 70 times. So you're gonna need a picture of that. And currently, what CryptoKitties are sold is they have a way of getting a picture for the CryptoKitties. It's not standardized. So going forward, this is the competitive question. You will not run a successful website unless you show a picture and it details on that specific token/deed. You can't sell a house without a picture of a house. You can sell rep coin without a picture of it.
Cool. And the one thing I'd add just about 721 Journal is that you've got like, you've got metadata that you got to worry about. That's just, and some people are doing it like off chain, some people are doing it on chain, and so this is OpenSea's platform. And here's an example of like an asset, right? That's on OpenSea, and there's certain metadata that's associated with this asset, and these are down here, like the properties, the stats, and so what OpenSea is trying to do is build sort of like a standard API like interface, so that there's like a convention for hosting metadata, but in reality, anyone who makes these projects can do it however way they want, and so you've got to kind of go find their project and scrape the data or hook up to their API. But I think this is like the ERC 721 like token launching process is insanely simple, especially if you're using something like Zeppelin, right? And you just like it's very easy. The harder part, I would say, if there is a hard part, is dealing with like this metadata and how it's displayed in the UI, and how do you, if you're building any type of kind of application logic on top of that, like search function, for example, how do I want to prioritize certain features and how do I weight them, right? It's easy to do like lowest first, highest first, recently sold, but when you start thinking about like other metadata and just like its importance, that it gets tricky.
I'm thinking through one of the examples that we talked about a little bit earlier today with entitlement for 721. And I guess my question is if you thought through the application, because the only way I can see that working is if the contract has a secret key that can do a challenge response type interaction with. So for entitlement, so we'll use the example of a book rental. So let's say I have a real world asset that's wrapped in a DRM, it's on an IP global file system, and what I'm looking for is the ability to consume that content via a contract that's written in 721. So is the assumption that the decryption key challenge response is embedded within the contract that allows me for this period of time to then consume that content, or is that not part of the embedded standard?
Yeah, so y'all hear the question? All right. So the way that would work, I'm thinking is you would purchase that book online, through this contract, and then offline, whoever was the proprietor of that material would then encrypt that with your public key that only you would be able to decrypt. That doesn't stop you from sending a copy of that decrypted data to your buddy and pirating that way. There's really no way to do that. Yeah. Right. There's no way. Well, yeah. Once you send it out, I mean, there's ways with DRM to.
So you have two separate questions. Your first question is generalizing. Is it possible to implement an entitlement program that has a time-limited public cryptography system and be compliant with the standard? Answer: yes. Second question: how would I do that? Answer: the way you do that, one way you can do that is you can, and let's look at how we're doing that today. How do we currently lock access to files using DRM? Adobe PDFs. Okay, so let's talk about Microsoft/Adobe. So you have a PDF, you gotta type a password out. You get access to the thing. Password doesn't change. It's good to go. That's a one password system. Let's talk about Microsoft Word files. Anybody use encrypted Microsoft Word files? Anybody work? Any government? Yeah, well, you know what's up. So the way Microsoft Word works is you have access to a system and it runs online. So you open the file, it checks with the DRM server to make sure you still have access to that file. And again, we can imagine there would be some type of cryptography, revocation list, and blah 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 blah. They have this. This is all so. This is well known. I mean, I'm not inventing stuff here. This is Microsoft uses it. Microsoft's still relevant, then you can consider that a battle-tested model. So how would you implement that? You have the standard 721 token, you get it, you own it. Okay, so now you own it, you have access to, let's say, password. Password does not change for the life of the deed or the entitlement, so your password would be created at mint time. So the token's minted, password could be public. I mean, if it's tied to your computer or software, something would be a public password, or you would have a front end that generates a password and then saves a hash of it in there. The question is, can I do it on chain? So how would you do it on chain? The way you could do it is, let's say we're running on Tor, blah blah blah. It's sensitive. So how would we do that on chain? The way you would do it is still at mint time. You're going to have to have some either the thing's public or it's not, right? So if you think that how's your access mechanism going to work? So if you have the password, it's going to get it. Okay, so you're going to do a challenge against the contract. So the contract will have additional logic, which is supplementary to UC 7.1. So you're going to have a new function. It's going to be, I have, if sent by owner, perform challenge response, give response, you get it. Okay, so now on the second side, there's got to be some trust here, because you can print PDFs that you're not supposed to print. I might go to jail for telling you that. You can hold shift to bypass the CD autoplay. You will go to jail if you tell anybody that. So yeah, people go. Okay. Digital Millennium Copyright Act. So yeah, you're gonna have to figure that part out yourself. Here's one way you could do it. You could have a blockchain-based application that checks for revocation at playtime, load time, whatever, and it will have to be an online app. I can't magically tell you that having a password to unlock a file will automatically close the browser after 5 minutes. I wouldn't see need to standardize that. You're talking about, I would think that's application specific. So maybe for you, you've got an application where you want every time they open the file to check in, phone home, and see that it's still valid. Adobe phones home every friggin' minute on my computer. I mean, shit. You have Photoshop open, ding, ding, ding. I'm like, okay, that's the way that they run their business. Because God forbid, whatever. Maybe someone else has a book where you buy it and there's kind of like this, hey, we trust you. You're going to get 9 months, and if you try to open it in 11 months, it won't work. So you have to decide what type of challenge response, what type of trust, because there's a level of trust between the blockchain and the application. Until we have trusted computing, which we will never have, you can get rid of that. But for now, I think that's very application specific, and so it will not be standardized. It still runs on top of 7.1.
All right, John Forrest, where are you? You need to be up here. So John's going to talk about the Codex protocol. He's the guy that I mentioned earlier that kind of reached out to me. We happen to be in the same city. I was kind of really fortunate that we had Codex protocol, and we have Vibrant. We've got some really big things going on here in Dallas. It's really fun. Do you have a question?
Question. No, we're all talking about this as if yes, go ahead. There's a couple questions. Should we even be doing more ERC 21 tokens with the atmosphere, with the SEC coming down? And the other thing is, can these applications, all these new applications, be sustainable with the scalability issues? Should we wait till proof of stake is implemented, and what's going to happen there?
Okay, so two questions. The regulatory stuff, I'm not a lawyer. My lawyer's probably within earshot right now, so they're going to tell me don't comment on that.
Okay.
But the only thing I can say on that is, if I sell you a pair of Jordans, that's not a security. There's nothing wrong with that. And if I sell you a CryptoKitty, it's really no different. Now, that opens up Pandora's box, though, because there's all kinds of things that can happen. There's plenty of ERC-20 applications out there where those are not considered securities. Every regulatory body out there, from the CFTC on down, sees it that way. It's just a matter of the use case and how they're being used. So I mean, it's sort of like, your question was, should we be looking at running into 721 with all of this regulatory, worry, which is valid? Look at use case, and you look at how these things are being used and where their application or how they're being applied. The second question you had was about scalability. I'll tell a little story. There was a gentleman that messaged me a few months ago, and he's putting together this blockchain e-commerce platform system. And he was looking at the different chains, and he's like, yeah, this is like back in December. And he said, I said, well, what platform are you looking at? He's like, well, I was looking at Ethereum, but the network was bogged down. We don't know when the next CryptoKitty, rush is going to happen. So I'm looking at things like, Lisk, and I was like, oh, cool, I like Lisk, good platform and stuff. And then he got through kind of explaining what his mentality, and I was like, well, look, the reason why Ethereum has that problem and Lisk doesn't is because everyone's using Ethereum. So it's kind of like, go back in time and look at like AOL. Like AOL had like this problem. All the consumers were in AOL system, and you're like, God, but I'm getting, I can't dial in because there's too many. They don't have enough modems to answer the call, which is what happened with AOL. So I'm gonna use Prodigy, which no one used, and Prodigy was sort of this like redheaded stepchild at the side. And it's like, yeah, you can connect, and it's really fast, but it's like, yeah. But so those are sort of the growing pains that we're going to have to kind of deal with, I think, for a while.
Well, what about EOS and Cardano saying that it's the new, Ethereum's just 2.0, and the smart contracts are going to go to something like.
Any chance I get to bash EOS, I'll do it.
May I also answer your first two questions? So let's remember, we're not, again, no paradigm shift. These are existing models of doing stuff. And so let's not lose our heads here. Your question was, what are the regulatory risks of selling assets using ERC-20? Your second question is now the right time to launch. So regarding selling assets, you're seeing the SEC get involved, and you're seeing you're going to see crackdowns. You're going to see more crackdowns. You're going to see more people they're going to do shady things. They're going to do unethical things. It's going to happen because people in this room are making money. Other people want to be like us. So they're going to do shady things. But let's not forget, the reason it's shady has nothing to do with ERC-20. Again, a car analogy. If you have a car and you sell it, that's great. I have a car, it's usable. If you have a car and you sell it as a collectible, it may increase in value. Again, this is not a problem. I'm giving you legal advice here. I'm not a lawyer. But if you take a car and if you tell somebody, listen, you're going to buy this car, you're going to wait 20 years, you're going to sell it for $20 million. I promise. I guarantee it, and I have a white paper that proves it. I've got proofs, I've got Russian programmers, I've got this, I've got that. Visa's on board. The other company's on board. Visa backs it. Russian programmers back it. I've got this. President Obama signed off on it, and you write that down and you forge Obama's signature, you put it on the car, you say, I guarantee you, put my life on it, 20 years from now, $20 million. SEC will call you. You're not supposed to do that. You've taken a car sale and they'll be fine.
Well,
Used car salesman, right here.
No, it'd be a different agency. It wouldn't be FTC.
Sorry. Somebody will call you, FTC, if it's across state lines.
Well, because it's not a security.
If you sell a car I'm going to put a lawyer in this. If you take the car and you securitize it, and you sell it as a security, I mean, if I take the car and I say, there's going to be a market for this, and you start lying about it.
You're selling one car.
Okay.
So you're selling a property, you're not selling a security.
But what if you have an investment thesis and you have guaranteed returns?
It's still a property. It's not a security still. It'd be like if I sell you,
I'm debating with a lawyer on law here. I'm going to lose, but
So if I sell you a piece of property, whether it's a car, a computer, a home, and I make misrepresentations about that, if it's a regulated area, I might have a regulatory agency come after me, but it's not a security, so it wouldn't be the Securities and Exchange Commission. It might be a state agency, it might be the Federal Trade Commission, it might be somebody else. Maybe I'm making too much of a distinction here.
This is a good discussion. Let me fight you on this. Okay, what if I take this car and I take the title for it and then I securitize it? Just the one car.
Well, so if you sell 100,000 tokens for that one car, now you've securitized it. Now you have a securities
I'm
car.
trying to use 1950s language here. No tokens, no nothing. I got a car, I got a deed, and I say, listen, I'm gonna I'm gonna put this deed in this box, and whoever puts the most money in that box gets that deed. What the SEC call me.
No,
What if I said, I guarantee if you put money in this box, you're gonna double your money by getting this car?
no.
What if you said, you put your money in this box, somebody else puts their money in that box, you're gonna get the car, and then you're gonna get that other person's money?
No.
Work with me here.
Got another lawyer here, so we're going to team up on it.
And perhaps if you started a corporation, transferred the car into the corporation as the only asset, and then sold the shares of the corporation that are only representing the car, I'd say that's security. It's not really directly the car, but
It's
like,
indirection.
that's, no.
And then what if I lie to everybody and I say that there's companies involved and endorse it that don't?
Well, are you following my friend Ford's
In a
structure?
company, so I've got a
Yes,
company that
yes.
owns a
Now,
car,
now
that
you've
I'm
got
lying about
security.
it.
Now you've got a security, so yes, the SEC can come after you.
For some contrived possibility of circumstances, it is
You
possible.
got 2 out of 2 lawyers. There's probably other lawyers in here who might disagree.
It's possible. And we're going to get more into this in 1 second.
The one thing to distinguish between though is there's a question here of, are you trying to use this technology to get around existing regulatory, or are you committing outright fraud, right? I mean, that's the question, because there's both happening right now, right? There are people who are putting together land deals or, big kind of, deals where they're selling, groups of land and building funds and things like that are traditional securities, and they're trying and hoping, because SEC and IRS have no idea what the hell is going on yet, to get around existing regulatory standards and all of that. There are other people who are putting together deals, and they're saying, I'm going to do all of these things, and I'm going to do this and that, whether it's a security, whether it falls under securities or not. They won't. They're just cash grabbing while everything's hot, while the rest of us are trying to do legitimate things, and it's just outright fraud, right? And so, I mean, there's a combination of these two things that are being dealt with, and I think it's a combination of what's elevated the intensity by which they're examining all of this right now, because of both people trying to do legitimate things and getting around regulation, as well as just committing outright fraud. And the amount of outright fraud that's been happening, I think, is what's accelerated this scrutiny. Right?
And fraud comes in a lot of categories. I mean, we talked about securitizing oil field. Did you know about oil? Extraction revenue that you pay to some states or whatever. You can't just say, oh, there's oil in my backyard, I'm going to sell that using a token. When in the real world, without tokens, you would need to pay taxes on that and whatever. So, again, the tokens are not changing the business model. You still need to respect the laws. You still need to conduct business ethically. And maybe not the SEC, but somebody will come